My name is Sophie Turner. I am 33 years old. The night everything detonated, I was standing at the head of my parents' dining table in Albuquerque, staring at a bowl of green chili stew going cold, while my mom's voice sliced through the room. "So you went behind our backs and took it," she said, her fork clinking against her plate. My dad stared into his glass. My older sister Danielle leaned back, smirking, while her husband Isla scrolled his phone like this was just background noise instead of my life blowing up in front of him. I had just told them my late uncle left me controlling interest in his desert glamping company Sun Mesa Trails, plus majority voting rights in the holding company. The business was worth nearly $30 million. For the first time, my future did not feel like a joke. He did not leave it to you, my mom snapped. You manipulated him when he was sick. If you are listening, what would you do if your own family called you a thief the minute you finally caught a break? Have you ever watched dinner turn into a war over money right in front of the tortillas? Danielle tapped her wine glass, her voice dripping with fake concern that did not match the sharpness in her eyes. "Sophie, you barely keep your own life together," she said. "You run Instagram accounts. You are not some big-time executive. You cannot run a multi-million-dollar hospitality brand." Ela finally looked up, his dark eyes cool as he slid a manila envelope across the table like it was a menu. "We had Reed send over some suggested paperwork," he said, using my attorney's first name like it belonged to him. "Just a temporary management proxy so your parents can help with major decisions until things settle." I did not touch the envelope. "Reed did not draft anything for you," I said quietly. "He works for me." My dad finally spoke, his tone flat. "Don't be dramatic. This is family, not war." My mom's lips curled. "You think you can cut us out after everything we have done for you? You owe this family, Sophie." Danielle leaned forward, hungry. "If you do not sign, you are going to wreck everything. Do not expect us to be here when it blows up." I pushed my chair back, the legs scraping tile, and nudged the envelope away with 2 fingers like it might leave a stain. "I am not signing anything tonight," I said, my voice shaking more from hurt than fear. Uncle Mark trusted me. He knew I understand digital bookings and marketing. He chose me. My mom gave a short, bitter laugh. "He chose the easy target," she said. "You were always desperate for someone to tell you you were special." The room suddenly felt too small, the smell of roasted chile thick and sour. "Fine," Danielle said, rolling her eyes. "Do what you want. Just do not call us when you crash and burn." "I will not," I said, lying to myself more than to them. Outside, the desert night was cool and wide, the sky over Albuquerque black and full of stars. As I backed my car out of their driveway, my phone buzzed with a text from Danielle. "Enjoy it while it lasts." I should have ignored it, but my eyes flicked down to the notification as I pulled onto the main road. That was when I saw the truck's headlights swing across the median, too fast and too deliberate, angling straight toward the driver's side of my little car. Everything collapsed into screeching brakes, tearing metal and glass, exploding in a spray of light. My head snapped sideways, pain bursting through my ribs as the airbag punched into my chest, the seatbelt biting into my shoulder. My phone flew from my hand, Danielle's text vanishing in a smear of white and red. For a moment there was nothing but a horn blaring somewhere, and my own ragged breathing. Then the world dimmed and went black. When I opened my eyes again, the light was harsh and flat, washing everything in hospital white. A steady beep echoed near my ear. I tried to move, and pain ripped through my chest and left leg, yanking me back into my body. An oxygen line tugged at my nose. IV tubing ran from my arm into a bag dripping clear fluid. On the whiteboard in messy marker, someone had written UNM Hospital. Trauma. The clock above it read 3 in the morning. The plastic chair beside the bed was empty. No flowers, no card, no familiar voice saying my name. Not my mom. Not my dad. Not Danielle. Just me, the monitors, and the hum of the hallway. A man in scrubs stepped in, gray at the temples, kind lines around tired eyes. "Ms. Turner, you are awake," he said, checking the monitor with practiced hands. I am Dr. James Nolan. You were in a serious collision, but you are stable. You have broken ribs, a fractured tibia, and a concussion. His voice was calm, but my thoughts raced. Has anyone called? I asked, my throat dry. My family. He hesitated, and in that pause, I already knew the answer would hurt. Your sister came once, he said. Danielle Turner. She arrived a few hours after you were admitted. Relief flashed through me, then confusion. Then where is she now? I asked. Dr. Nolan glanced toward the doorway, lowering his voice. She took your phone from the tray, he said. Told the nurse you would want it safe with her. She also went through your personal belongings looking for insurance information. Before she left, I saw her deleting some notifications. They looked like banking alerts. My stomach twisted. My personal account had just received a renovation advance from a Sun Mesa investor. The idea of Danielle deleting those messages made my skin crawl. Can I use a phone? I asked. I need to call my attorney. A few minutes later, he set a hospital landline within reach and gave me a look that said he knew this was bigger than a copay. We will handle the medical side, he said, but if something does not feel right, you say something. When he left, I dialed a number I had memorized when my uncle wrote his will, my attorney, Reed Patterson. It rang twice before his calm, clipped voice answered. This is Reed. It is Sophie, I said. I was in a car accident. There was a sharp inhale, then his tone shifted into something harder. Are you safe? Are you alone? He asked. I told him about the dinner, the envelope, Danielle's text, the truck that came out of nowhere, and Dr. Nolan's comment about her deleting my banking alerts. Reed listened without interrupting. Sophie, I need you to stay very calm, he said finally. We have already seen unusual attempts to access the Sun Mesa operating accounts. Yesterday, someone tried to reset the corporate banking password, using your old email, the one your mom still controls. This morning, while you were listed as critical, someone submitted preliminary paperwork to move your voting rights into a Turner family trust claiming you were mentally incapacitated. We blocked it, but that is not a coincidence. I closed my eyes as the pattern started to form, ugly and familiar. My parents know everything I said. I told them at dinner. Danielle and Isla were there too. They tried to push me to sign a management proxy so they could help with the company. I refused and left. The crash happened maybe 20 minutes later. Reed was silent for a beat. The timing is disturbing, he said. There is another piece. Some of the attempted filings list a secondary signatory named Isla Carter. Does that name mean anything to you? The room tilted in a way that had nothing to do with the concussion. Isla, I repeated. The last time I had seen him before he married my sister had been under Las Vegas neon, both of us laughing too loud in a tiny chapel off the Strip. We had been 25 and stupid enough to think a tipsy wedding was romantic. The marriage lasted 6 chaotic months before we quietly annulled it. I never told my family. I was too ashamed that I had picked someone who gambled away rent money. Isla is Danielle's husband now, I forced out. But he used to be my husband. He knows my passwords, my signature, all my dumb security answers. Reed exhaled slowly. Then he has intimate access to your information. I am putting an emergency freeze on your personal and corporate accounts. If anyone shows up with paperwork, do not sign. I will be in Albuquerque tomorrow. After we hung up, exhaustion washed over me, but my mind would not quiet. Later that morning, Dr. Nolan came back with a clipboard and a cautious expression. We need to talk about billing, he said. Do you have a primary card we can put on file? I gave him my main credit card number tied to the account that had received the renovation funds. An hour crawled by before he returned, his brows drawn tight. Your card was declined, he said. The bank marked it deactivated for security reasons. When we called to verify, they asked to confirm with a financial guardian on the account. My stomach dropped. I do not have a financial guardian, I said. Who did they name? Dr. Nolan checked his notes. A woman named Danielle Turner, he answered quietly. She called last night, said you were in a serious accident and that she needed emergency authority to protect you from impulsive spending. The representative sounded uneasy, but they put a temporary block on the card. My hands shook as I dialed my mom. She picked up on the third ring. "You should be resting," she said instead of hello. "Why are you already causing problems from a hospital bed?" "Why is Danielle talking to my bank?" I demanded. "Why is my card deactivated? I never agreed to that." There was a pause. Then my mom sighed like I was a teenager whining about curfew. "She is handling things," she said. "You are in no condition to manage money or contracts. The company is too important to risk on your mood swings. Focus on recovering. Danielle and Isla are taking care of the rest." A cold pressure spread through my chest, taking care of what I asked. My accounts. The company. My voting rights. "Do not raise your voice to me," my mom snapped. "You have always been reckless. You jump into things and expect us to clean up. This time you are lucky to be alive. Let the people who know what they are doing step in." She hung up. I stared at the phone, my hand numb. I asked Dr. Nolan to bring me the small purse I had had in the car. He dug it out of a plastic bag and handed it over. Inside a side pocket was a crumpled printout I did not recognize. The date matched the dinner. A wire transfer of $45,000 had gone out of my personal account labeled consulting services. The recipient's information was blurred, but the last four letters of the destination account were clear: TRUK. Dr. Nolan studied my face. "What is it?" he asked. I held the damp paper out with shaking fingers. "Money moved out of my account last night," I whispered. "I did not authorize this." He scanned it, his jaw tightening. "This is a wire transfer, not a simple card charge," he said. "Someone had full access." My mind spun. Danielle had taken my phone and deleted alerts. My card was frozen under a lie about protecting me. Someone had already submitted paperwork labeling me mentally unfit. My uncle's company, my accounts, my name. They were all in play, while I lay here in a hospital gown. "Can you get me online?" I asked. "I need to see my accounts myself." He brought in a hospital tablet, logged out of the previous profile, and left me alone. It took everything I had to type my passwords, but eventually my personal banking page appeared. Under recent activity, I saw the outgoing $45,000 wire to a shell entity with a P.O. box outside Albuquerque and a fraud hold slapped on it. Below that sat a denied attempt to send $70,000 from the Sun Mesa operational account to the same destination. On Instagram, Danielle's latest story showed her and Isla on a rooftop downtown, glasses raised over the city lights. The caption read, "Big moves. New era." By the time Reed walked into my hospital room the next afternoon with a travel cup in one hand and his briefcase in the other, the fear in my chest had hardened into something sharp. "You look better than I expected," he said, pulling a chair beside the bed. "Dr. Nolan says you are lucky to be alive." "Lucky," I repeated. "Is that what we are calling being hit by a truck 20 minutes after telling my family I control a nearly $30 million company?" Reed's expression did not change much, but his eyes darkened. "The investigating officer wrote it up as a standard accident," he said. "But I requested the preliminary report. The skid marks and a security camera from a nearby gas station show the truck swerving into your lane, not the other way. The driver disappeared before anyone could take a statement. The P.O. box tied to that wire belongs to a one-man company owned by someone with a record of staged collisions." I swallowed hard. "So someone paid him," I said, "and tried to move the money before the bank noticed." Reed nodded. "We asked the bank to preserve recordings of every call from Danielle. The attempt to reassign your voting rights is frozen, but I expect they will try another angle. Your family will probably show up here with paperwork claiming you are not fit to run Sun Mesa." Reed set his phone on the bedside table and tapped the speaker icon. "I am leaving this on," he said. "If they come in, I want every word recorded. Sun Mesa's chief financial officer is furious on your behalf. Your uncle handpicked you for a reason." That reminder hit me harder than the painkillers. Uncle Mark was the only one who treated my work like a career instead of a hobby, walking me through guest feedback and marketing ideas when everyone else joked that I played on Instagram for a living. Hours later, the sound of heels on linoleum pulled me from a restless doze. My mom walked in first, her face tight, followed by my dad, his eyes pinned to some invisible spot. Danielle strode in like she owned the room, Isla right behind her with a thick stack of papers in his hands. "You look rough," Danielle said, not bothering with hello. Isla gave me a small, controlled smile. "We are glad you are awake," he said. "We have a few things to straighten out so you do not have to worry about anything while you recover." I stared at Isla, really looked at him, and Vegas came back in flashes: the tiny chapel, the cheap ring, the way he grinned when the officiant pronounced us husband and wife. I remembered how quickly that grin vanished when the bills piled up. "Why are you here, Isla?" I asked, my voice low. "Because he is my husband," Danielle answered before he could speak, stepping closer to the bed. "And because he is the only one in this family with legal sense. He helped pull the San Misa filings together. You should be grateful." Isla's eyes flickered. Reed's phone sat on the bedside table, its little indicator light glowing. "That is interesting," I said. "Because Isla was my husband first." My mom's head snapped toward me. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. My dad actually looked at me. Danielle's face went pale, then flushed. "She is confused," Danielle said quickly. "The concussion is messing with her memory. Vegas, 5 years ago. Marigold Chapel," I said, cutting across her. "We were drunk. It was annulled. But it happened. That is how he knows my passwords and my signature. That is why his name is on the attempted San Mesa filings, is it not, Isla?" For the first time, his composure cracked. "I thought you would be dead," he blurted, then clapped a hand over his mouth. The room went completely still. "What did you just say?" I asked. Isla's eyes darted to Danielle, then to my parents. Danielle thrust the papers toward me, her voice climbing. "Stop twisting everything," she snapped. "These are guardianship documents. You sign, we take temporary control of your finances and business decisions. It is for your own good. You almost got yourself killed driving upset, and you think you can juggle contracts and investors." My mom latched onto that idea immediately. "Just sign, Sophie," she pleaded. "We will keep everything safe until you are thinking clearly. You know you get overwhelmed." My dad muttered, "Do not make this harder than it needs to be," without meeting my eyes. I did not reach for the pen. "Who paid the truck driver?" I asked quietly. "Was it before or after you posted big moves, new era?" Danielle's nostrils flared. "You are not the victim here," she said. "You are the problem we are trying to fix." Isla's voice dropped to a whisper. "He was just supposed to scare you," he said. "Make you rethink keeping everything for yourself. Danielle said you would never sign unless something big happened." Reed's voice crackled out of the phone, calm and precise. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," he said. "This recording combined with the bank transfer and attempted trust filings should be sufficient." My mom staggered back a step. "Recording," she echoed, her face draining. Danielle spun on Isla. "You idiot," she hissed. "You cannot just admit that you hired him." Isla shot back, panic shredding his smooth tone. "You wired him the $45,000. I just handled the paperwork. Your mom and dad said we would all share the buyout once we pushed Sophie out." My dad finally looked directly at me, shame all over his face. "We never agreed to hurt you," he said weakly. "We just thought you were not ready." I pressed the call button. Within a minute, Dr. Nolan appeared in the doorway. "Is there a problem?" he asked, scanning the tension in the room. "Yes," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I need security and the police, right now. My family is trying to force me to sign away my rights while I am in a hospital bed, and my attorney just recorded them admitting they paid someone to cause my crash." Everything sped up and slowed down at once. 2 hospital security guards arrived and positioned themselves between my bed and my family, calm but unmovable. Danielle tried to insist it was just a family matter, but they did not step aside. Isla's shoulders sagged as one guard told them they needed to wait in the hall until the police showed up. My mom kept repeating that it was all a misunderstanding and that I was confused from medication, but nobody in that room bought it anymore. When 2 officers from the Albuquerque Police Department came, they listened to the recording on Reed's phone, photographed the wire slip, and took notes from Dr. Nolan about Danielle's earlier behavior with my phone. They did not arrest anyone that day, but they opened an investigation and escorted my family out of the hospital with a clear warning not to return without permission. The next week blurred into scans, physical therapy, and interviews. Dr. Nolan did more than patch me up. He called a social worker, sat in on one of the meetings, and gently suggested I not go back to my parents' house when I was discharged. If what your attorney is saying is accurate, you need distance and security, he said. You cannot recover in a place where people treat you like an asset instead of a person. 2 weeks later, I left the hospital for a small, secure apartment near Old Town. The building had keypad entry and cameras in the lobby, which suddenly mattered more to me than granite countertops. My new neighbor, Autumn, helped me haul boxes up the elevator while I hobbled behind on crutches. The landlord said you had a rough month, she said. Not prying, just offering help. If you ever need someone to grab groceries or move something heavy, I am across the hall. A couple of days after that, my boss, Kyle Bennett, stopped by with New Mexican takeout and a folder of light work I could do from my couch. You do not owe the internet anything right now, he said. But if you want something to occupy your brain that is not your family trying to screw you over, we can quietly pivot Sunmisa's socials toward healing and resilience. While I learned to navigate my tiny kitchen on one good leg, Reed turned my life into a map of evidence. He pulled my phone records from the cloud-aligned timestamps between Danielle's calls to the bank and the wire transfer, and hired a private investigator to dig into the shell company that had received the $45,000. The investigator tracked down the truck driver, a man with a history of suspicious crashes, and got him to cooperate in exchange for a shot at a lighter sentence. One afternoon, Reed sat on my couch, laptop open, while the Sandia Mountains glowed pink outside my balcony. We have the driver's statement, he said. He confirms he was contacted through that shell company and paid to hit your car and make it look like you drifted into his lane. He clicked to another file. We also have recordings from the bank. Danielle called pretending to be your guardian. Isla fed her details in the background. You can hear him whispering answers when the representative asks security questions. He opened a final window. On the screen was a printout of an email from an account tied to Isla. The subject line said consulting, but the body was blunt. No scare tactics. Make sure she does not walk away from this thinking she is in charge. It had been sent the afternoon of the dinner hours before my crash. So what happens now? I asked, my voice low. Reed's mouth set in a determined line. Now we move from defense to offense, he said. We file for criminal charges, attempted murder, conspiracy, and financial fraud. We lock down every access point to Sunmisa and your money. The detective on the case agrees, but she would like one more thing, a public confrontation that shows exactly how entitled and careless they are. That extra piece arrived sooner than I expected. About a month after the crash, while I was still limping and waking up from dreams of headlights, Reed forwarded me a screenshot of Danielle's latest post. She and Isla sat at a long table in a trendy downtown restaurant, my parents on either side, champagne flutes raised. The caption read, "New chapter, new leadership, same legacy. Turner family on top." My name did not appear anywhere, but the business they were celebrating was my uncle's company and my responsibility. They are telling people you are stepping down, Reed said over the phone, that you have been overwhelmed and decided to let your big sister take over for the good of the brand. Investors are starting to ask if that is true. Rage flared hot and clean, cutting through the fog that had been hanging over me since the crash. Invite them to dinner, I said. Tell my parents I want to make peace and talk about a fair arrangement. Same restaurant, private table if we can get it. Asked the detective to send a couple of officers to sit nearby. I looked around my small apartment at the crutches leaning against the wall, at Autumn's sticky note, offering to water my plants, at the therapy worksheet stacked on my table. I am done hiding, I said. They already tried to erase me in secret. I want them to see me standing. The night of the dinner, the restaurant hummed with low conversation and clinking glassware fairy lights strung along the ceiling, casting a warm glow. Reed and I arrived early. He subtly nodded to two plainclothes officers seated at a table across the room. Menus open as they watched the entrance. My leg still ached, but I stood when my parents walked in with Danielle and Isla, all four of them dressed like they were attending an awards banquet instead of a reckoning. "Look who finally decided to stop sulking," Danielle said as they reached the table. Isla gave me a small, polished smile. "We are glad you called," he said. "There is no reason this has to get messy. We can work something out that lets you step back with dignity, while the family preserves what your uncle built." I gestured for them to sit, my pulse pounding but my hand steady. "That is exactly what I want to talk about," I said. "I have been thinking a lot about what is fair and how to protect Sun Misa." My mom's shoulders dropped a little. "We knew you would come around," she said softly. My dad looked almost relieved, like he thought the nightmare was over. "Before we discuss any terms, I need to show you something," I said, sliding a folder from Reed's briefcase and opening it so they could see. On top was a still image from the traffic camera near the crash, the truck clearly angled into my lane. Underneath lay a print of the $45,000 wire transfer from my personal account, Danielle's authorization highlighted. Beneath that sat the email from Isla's account with the line, "Make sure she does not walk away from this thinking she is in charge," in yellow. Danielle's jaw tightened. "What is this supposed to prove?" she demanded. "You stalking my accounts now?" "No," I said. "This shows the trail you left while you were trying to remove me. The driver has admitted you hired him. The bank kept recordings of your calls. The court authorized a search of Isla's email." Isla went pale. "You are twisting things," he said, voice shaking. "That email was about negotiation tactics, not paying a man with a history of staged crashes," I cut in. "Not calling my bank to tell them I am unstable, not showing up at my hospital bed with guardianship papers." My mom scanned the pages again, her face draining. "Tell me this is not what it looks like," she whispered to Danielle. "Tell me you did not do this." Danielle slammed her palm on the table hard enough that the silverware jumped. "She is framing us," she shouted, drawing stares from nearby tables. "She cannot handle that Uncle Mark never wanted her running things alone. We just nudged it in the right direction." Reed cleared his throat. "For the record," he said, his voice crisp, "we have your statements from the hospital recording Ms. Turner, as well as Mr. Carter's admission that he thought Ms. Turner would be dead. Combined with the financial trail and the driver's testimony, the district attorney has a very strong case." The phrase district attorney landed like a slap. My mom's hand flew to her mouth. Isla turned to Danielle, panic fully visible now. "You said no one would trace it," he whispered. "You said it would look like an accident, that we would just restructure things and she would be forced out." Danielle's composure finally cracked. "We had to do something," she hissed. "She was going to ruin everything." Mom and Dad agreed they would back us up, tell the court she was unstable. We were protecting the family, not trying to hurt anyone. My dad flinched at that shame washing over him. "We never agreed to hurt you," he repeated weakly. "We just listened to her." One of the plainclothes officers stood flipping open a badge as the room went quiet. "Danielle Turner, Isla Carter," he said, stepping toward the table. "You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and financial fraud." The words hung in the air for a beat before gasps and whispers rippled through the restaurant. My mom's shoulders crumpled as the officer guided Danielle to stand. Isla backed away until the second officer took his arm. "You think this makes you strong?" Danielle spat at me as they turned her toward the door. "You will have nobody when this is over." For the first time since this started, I believed her. And for the first time, that felt like freedom instead of a threat. I would rather be alone than surrounded by people who treat my life like a business deal, I said. Isla did not look back as the officers read them their rights and led them outside under the fairy lights. Reed quietly gathered the documents back into the folder. My parents sat frozen, watching their eldest daughter and her husband disappear into a patrol car while Albuquerque whispered around them about what kind of family celebrates a new chapter by trying to erase the one person their relative trusted most. Months later, I sat in a Bernalillo County courtroom, my leg mostly healed, a blazer over my shoulders instead of a hospital gown. The benches were filled with Sun Mesa employees, reporters, and curious locals. At the defense table, Danielle and Isla looked smaller somehow. Danielle's hair was pulled into a tight bun, her prison beige flat, where her tailored dresses used to be. Isla's eyes were dull, the slick charm gone, replaced by something tired. Their attorneys tried everything, arguing the driver was lying to save himself, claiming the recordings were misunderstood, suggesting my concussion distorted my memory. None of it outweighed the evidence: the truck's path on camera, the bank's recorded calls, the wire transfer, the email, the driver's detailed account of his meetings with them in a strip mall parking lot. When the judge finally delivered the sentence, his voice carried through the packed room. Danielle Turner and Isla Carter, he said, you are hereby sentenced to 16 years in state prison for attempted murder and financial fraud. My stomach fluttered, not with joy, but with the strange sensation of a heavy door finally slamming shut. Danielle jerked her head toward me, her eyes burning with pure hatred, like she could carve a promise into the air without saying a word. She would never forgive me for surviving. Isla kept his gaze on the table as the bailiff cuffed him, shoulders slumped, like he had finally understood the cost of every shortcut he had ever taken. My parents sat a few rows behind me, gray and shrunken. They were not charged. The prosecutor said there was not enough to prove they knew about the crash itself, only the financial maneuvering. But the depositions revealed exactly how quickly they agreed to call me unstable in exchange for a share of control. Friends stopped taking their calls. The church quietly asked them to step back from leadership. Sun Mesa's board voted unanimously to remove them from every advisory position they held. They eventually sold their large East Side house to pay legal bills and moved into a smaller place farther out. As court adjourned, my mom tried to catch my eye, tears streaming, and my dad opened his mouth like he might finally say the apology I used to dream about. I walked past them without slowing down. Life did not magically become easy once the verdict was read, but it became mine. With Reed's guidance, I rebuilt Sun Mesa's leadership around the people who had actually been doing the work, the site managers who knew which tents needed extra insulation in winter, the maintenance crews who kept the solar and water systems running, the marketing staff, who knew which influencers filled bookings and which just wanted free stays. I shifted my own role into brand direction and partnerships, working closely with Kyle to design campaigns around healing in nature rather than pure luxury. We set aside a portion of my dividends for quiet initiatives, free stays for first responders, discounted retreats for people who had survived trauma. I started therapy and stayed with it twice a week at first, then once, then every other week, picking apart years of being the lesser daughter, the one expected to be grateful for scraps and silent about hurt. Autumn became a real friend, not just a neighbor. We spent evenings on my balcony with iced tea, watching the sunset over the Sandias, while I told her pieces of the story I never planned to share on camera. I heard bits of my parents' lives through the local grapevine, but I stopped seeking out updates. My mom tried to start a consultancy for family business transitions, which would have been funny if it were not so tragic. Hardly anyone called. My dad picked up some part-time accounting work, but people were hesitant to let him near their books. Danielle and Isla's worlds shrank to prison walls, scheduled calls, and whatever job assignments they got behind bars. Their social media accounts went dark. Their names, which used to open doors in certain circles, now shut them. Sun Mesa thrived under the new structure. We invested in the land and staff housing and better safety protocols. We scrubbed my family's name from the website. It became my uncle's legacy and mine, supported by the people who had stayed when things were ugly. The space where my family used to sit in my life did not stay empty forever. It filled up with coworkers who had my back, neighbors who showed up with soup when I had the flu, guests who sent handwritten notes after their stays, thanking the staff for treating them like more than booking numbers. Looking back, what scares me most is not how extreme the plot became. It is how ordinary the first steps looked. They did not wake up one day and say, "Let us kill Sophie." They started with a dinner, with pressure, with language about protecting the family and helping me with a belief that because we were related, my success automatically belonged to them. One compromise led to another. By the time they wired money to a man known for staged crashes, they had already rewritten the story in their heads so many times that they could live with it. In their version, I was unstable, ungrateful, incompetent. They were responsible, decisive, saving Uncle Mark's legacy from me. When you grow up in a family like that, you learn to doubt your own read on reality. That is why I am telling this now. If someone in your family treats your achievements like something they are entitled to, if they talk about your money like community property while dismissing your boundaries, pay attention. That is not love. It is appetite. I do not talk to my parents anymore. I do not take their calls. I do not read their letters. I do not send holiday cards or casual texts just to check in. I do not monitor Danielle and Isla's prison status or count down the years on their sentences. If they walk out of those gates someday, it will not reopen anything for me. There are no secret fantasies about hugging it out at some future Thanksgiving. Those dinners are gone. My family now is the one I built, the team at San Misa who worked overtime while I learned to walk without a limp, the neighbor who dragged my groceries up 3 flights of stairs when the elevator broke, the therapist who sat with me while I relearned what it meant to trust my own judgment. I built a life where my worth is not up for debate, and my name is not something to be signed away on a guardianship form. If you are wondering whether you are overreacting to how your family treats you around money and boundaries, hear me clearly, you are not. If people show you over and over that they care more about what you provide than who you are, you have every right to walk away and never look back. I did, and I am not going back. There is no forgiveness coming from me, no tidy reconciliation, no we are closer than ever now ending. What they did went beyond a bad argument or a thoughtless comment. They used my accident as an opportunity and my life as leverage. Cutting them off was not revenge. It was self-defense. That is the final lesson I want to leave you with. Blood does not give anyone permanent access to you. Trust is earned and can be revoked. If someone proves they are willing to gamble with your safety for their benefit, you owe them nothing, not even a final explanation. Thank you for listening to my story. If you were in my place, would you press charges on your own family or try to keep the peace? Share your thoughts below. What would you do in her place?